The Dauntless. Come on, show us! His third youngest sister, Sweetest Request, demands as he holds her up. She's done the childish thing where she's hooked her tail around his pincer and is swinging from it partway upside down and giggling the whole way. I don't have one. I didn't come home for a visit armed, Skyward Bound protests. But don't the Undaunted always have weapons on them? It's like a Crimson Hewer and their armor, or a Battle Princess and the fire. It's always there, Sweetest Request asks him, and he chuckles. I'm not undaunted yet. I need to finish my training and take the full and proper oath. When's that? If all goes well, a couple of weeks. That's fast. My training is more a long series of tests that the memories they copied into my head have stuck properly and that I'm not an idiot, lazy, or a coward. After that, I start my first deployment. Which is, I've requested a communication post. We're good with languages as a species, and I'm a bit better than average for our kind, which makes me really, really good by the standards of other species, Skyward Bound says as he lifts his pincer up higher and then leans back as Sweetest Request takes a snip at him with her own and giggles. He lowers his pincer so she's just off the floor. She immediately begins toying with his boots. It was kind of rough being the bigger sibling of a genius. Sweetest Request is easily years ahead of her development mentally and is only truly young in body. Oh sure, there are things she simply can't get no matter how precocious. Boys that aren't family are just weird to her, and the fact that so many older girls talk about them so much confuses her. But she's very interested in the galaxy at large and makes a point of knowing things as much as possible. She's going to hit the university scene like an artillery barrage, and there will be only slightly less casualties left in her wake. Her name started as genuine as she would ask for and examine everything, but it was likely to end up ironic. Someone that precocious is going to end up as trouble. The good kind, but trouble is still trouble and you need to brace yourself for it. See, I told you girls that he's just moving into a new stage in his life. He's still skyward bound, he just wants that to mean something more. Deliberate Thought states, even if we were expecting him earlier. I was given a last-minute assignment for a 3-hour lesson. It's not my fault I got promoted, Skyward Bound protests. It's entirely your fault you got promoted. Sweetest Request counters, and he lowers his pincer enough that she folds her arms under her and keeps her head off the floor that way. And what do you know about that? He demands the little girl who giggles up at him. So to force an answer, he hauls her up again and turns his claw a bit so they're nearly eye to eye. His larger pincer catches her two little ones and he gives her a look. Well? Well what? She asks playfully, and he bounces her a few times and rotates her in a circle. Hey, start talking, little lady. Never, she declares and gets bounced a few more times. I'll never talk. Never is a long time, little lady, and only half as long as I can keep this up, he says, and the bouncing intensified, and she starts letting out a low sound that's interrupted slightly with every bounce. Come on, talk already. No. What are they arguing about? One of the mothers asks from behind him. I don't know, is the immediate answer that's offered. There's laughter throughout the room. Veiled and hidden eyes observe as the deal is closed. A muffus without a trace of wool nods before the dirty-looking Tret scrambles. Beyond this hidden observer is an observer of the observer, and when one spy moves, so does the other. The observer is veiled under an expertly crafted axiom effect that blends closely with the background field, allowing them to slowly walk on hoofed feet after the drug dealer and slowly follow them to an ugly gray apartment building. The observer's observer moves and acts differently. The clothing they wear blends in with the surrounding environment, and they stick to the shadows to avoid notice entirely. When they move, it is swift and between glances. None spot the small, statured, and lithe form. The observer is presented with a bit of an issue as the drug dealer slips into the building in a manner that leaves no door open long enough for them to simply slip through behind them. But it lasts only a moment before the slight distortion that is the only visible indicator of their presence is suddenly inside in a very quiet teleport. The observer's observer physically passes through solid matter like a ghost and sticks to the insides of the walls themselves in order to stay concealed. The bright lights inside the building offer little room to hide. The strange three-person procession of criminal observer and observer's observer goes up 2 flights of stairs and ends up in a room clearly labeled janitorial supplies. Of course, it's not a janitor's supply closet and is instead an entranceway, or rather it was a supply closet long ago, but someone realized that it was very close to an apartment, broke a hole in it, and then blocked off the main entrance to the apartment to make the series of rooms look condemned and not still in active use. How they got the janitor to stay away is probably best left unsaid. So the procession continues as both hidden parties slip into the chamber behind the drug dealer. "Something's wrong," the Tret woman says to the Nagasha, just laying on some cushions sideways and watching a video screen. "What?" the Nagasha asks, disinterested. "The product's getting harder to sell. If we can't pay our share to the boss, she's going to be pissed," the dealer states. "I thought you were the boss," the Nagasha asks, and receives a vicious kick. "I am the boss, and don't you forget it." Okay, geez. But that doesn't mean I don't have my own boss, you idiot." "Okay, I get it, calm down." The Nagasha protests, but still gets another kick for good measure. "Stir up more product. I need samples to bring in more eager customers. I'm going to have to spread out to another level. Fuck, this is going to be annoying. They have actual cops higher up." The dealer mutters to herself as she taps on one of her curled horns and considers. Neither her or her chemist Nagasha notice the blurred distortion that casually walks through the apartment and pokes its nose into each room systematically, clearly casing the place for future endeavors. Things are considered a bit, and a series of notebooks are quickly rifled through before one vanishes entirely as the first observer picks one up to read. The entire bundle of books vanish as the first observer realizes they just struck a gold mine of information, and after dipping into the chemistry lab for a minute, quickly walks out and leaves. The observer's observer sighs to themselves before moving out quickly in pursuit. The apartment is filled with screams as the small parcel bomb that the first observer left goes off, and they vanish in a teleport back to their main abode. The second observer continues to hang around and is hidden in the shadows of the flame as the 2 women retreat, the smoke of their product going up heavy and hard. "What did you do?" the dealer demands. "I didn't do anything. It only explodes in certain parts of the process, and it wasn't going to happen for hours," the Nagasha replies in a terrified tone. Neither one sees the shadow that flits into the burning room. The observer's observer notes very distinctive markings on the shrapnel from the tiny bomb. Markings that are used by one of the more prominent gangs on this section, a gang known to love collateral and causing damage. The shadow touches nothing, and before anyone can find them, is simply gone. A small green hand types in a report on their observations. Silvery white hair cascades down the sides of their face as yellow eyes are half closed as the typist yawns. "Long day?" a voice asks, and the Goby turns and faces a human roughly his own size. The Gob is a bit bigger and skinnier than average, and can pass for a child of a larger race with just a little bit of makeup work. "Complicated. Our level 8 asset is doing complicated frame jobs and setting the foundations for one of the more aggressive and violent gangs to be ousted from the area. It's not a bad idea, but I don't like him setting off bombs in apartment buildings, even if it is centered in a drug lab." The Goby returns. Things are always complicated when there's a huge amount of people and someone really underhanded involved. Agent Jameson continues as he looks over the Goby's shoulder. When I signed on to offer my services for a few years, I didn't expect things to be like this. The Goby states again, "Really? What were you expecting when we found out the black market contacts and thief network identification?" Agent Jameson continues, "Well, I'm sure I'd work a little better if you let me on the ship. Earn our trust and sign a binding contract. Until then, we're meeting at a safe house and nowhere else." Agent Jameson counters and the Goby sighs. "Now come on, Junior, finish your report." "I'm an adult of my species, unlike you, and I am also twice your age. Junior nothing," the Goby replies. "Still better than stealing for a living." "Only barely," the Goby answers. "I like the stealth suit." "It's nice, isn't it?" Agent Jameson replies. The Goby says as he types things out and sighs. "I need my break. I get 2 of them on my shift, right?" "Yep, snacks are in the ready room," Agent Jameson says with a chirp as the Goby saves his work and hops off the chair and leaves. Aliens, no stamina at all. He does consider things, though. Moriarty's movements are interesting and well-reasoned. However, the question as to which gangs he will end up subverting and which ones he will end up destroying is an interesting question. He seems to favor subjugating the profit-oriented ones and destroying the aggressive ones. But Herbert is willing to put money on 1 or 2 of the more aggressive ones being kept around as an implicit threat or a surviving danger for the other gangs to keep focused on, or that he can use as a blunt instrument to start smashing. It's what Herbert would do if he had that mission parameter and couldn't just duct tape everyone together and throw them in front of a police station with a running PowerPoint presentation of every reason why they need to be dragged into the nearest cell. That, or had a big enough hole to drop all the bodies. Either way, there are more efficient ways to stop crime, but redeeming it, that's not easy, not at all. He walks through the small safe house, or rather the safe house of the small. Gobes, Cobes, Metax, and Ikiyata were the most common people around here. All of them thieves, mercenaries, and individuals that weren't the most trustworthy. So they weren't allowed on the Dauntless, and all communications to it were distinctly one way. Still, these locals had all sorts of little tricks and techniques that had only added to his stealth abilities and skills, all sorts of little bits of knowledge that just plain help. Slight axiom tricks that added to stealth abilities without sending up a flare. Add to that some training and a stealth suit, and these guys were as good as invisible, but he needed to get a much better look at all of them to see who was and wasn't trustworthy. Still, they all knew how to be the silent and private stream, which was enough, but he had to keep a very close eye on all of them. "You're not doing too badly, young man. They're rough, but growing ready. Good pay and dignity is all they need," Sir Philip says as he casually catches Herbert's wrist as the knife was out and moving on the first syllable. "Sorry, sir. You actually startled me," Herbert remarks as he slides the knife away. "Of course I did. I'm still teaching you, young man,"